I'm going to tell you something you didn't know. The Labour Party are about to screw you out of as much money as they can.
I had
every single way.
Right.
Yeah, you had guessed, had you? Wow. But before we get on to that, I thought we'd start with Labour's gifts scandal.
Yeah.
Free Gear Keir is what people are calling him now. And what I like about Starmer is he does actually have a name that lends itself to rhyme and poetry and alliteration. Right. So there are lots of these names: Two-Tier Keir, Free Gear Keir. There was another one as well. I can't remember off the top of my head what it was. Starmer, Granny Harmer. And like, so there are lots of these names that people are making up about Keir. And what you can tell when someone is genuinely hated when people start organically making up these kinds of names, right? Generally, they don't do it. There's nothing for like Tony Blair, nothing for Gordon Brown. There's nothing for Boris Johnson or Liz Truss or David Cameron.
But with Maggie, you did have Maggie Milk Snatcher.
Yeah, Thatcher Milk Snatcher. Yeah, because she was genuinely hated by a significant segment of the population. Yes. So Starmer's arrived at that kind of position where he's genuinely hated, despised by a significant section of the population. And it's like, okay, well, I mean, maybe if you weren't such an evil anti-British robot, that wouldn't be such a problem. But let's begin with the gifts and freebies scandal, because the Telegraph have counted it up. And this is in 9 months. They've managed to rack up £800,000 in donations and freebies. And this is to the politicians personally. This isn't to the party. This is to those politicians.
I've got to say, I do find it at least a little bit admirable that they're not even... Tony Blair...
It's a bit admirable, isn't it?
Well, no, with Tony Blair, he at least tried to do the whiter than white thing and the ethical foreign policy. He pretended that he was doing everything right, and he was embarrassed when there was scandal come out. Yes. With these guys, they just don't care.
Oh, it's better than they just don't care. We'll get to it. It's better than that. They're proud of this. They're proud of it. So David Lammy has received the most, if you can believe it, since the beginning of 2024. He's accepted more than £150,000 worth of donations, freebies and gifts. This included £2,500 worth of tickets to see Tottenham Hotspur with the use of the hospitality box.
Right.
I mean, like 150 grand is like 3 times average wage in this country.
Yeah.
And he's racked it up in 9 months, which is just, it's impressive.
It's double an MP salary, more or less.
Absolutely. It's an impressive commitment to corruption. That's the thing. I knew it was going to be the case, but it's genuinely impressive. The largest sum donated to him was from Labour Together, a Starmerite think tank, which donated £40,000 for the, quote, provision of research and writing services. Oh, yeah, David Lammy, famous researcher and writer. Like, come on.
Which basically means money that he can then use to employ his family members and get a kickback from.
Oh, yeah, who knows what he does with it. I mean, I don't know what any of the Labour Party spend any money on, because they seem to get everything for free. There were other Labour cabinet ministers have received £750,000 in donations and another £90,000 in gifts. Lammy is followed by Wes Streeting, who received £117,000 in donations and gifts. Among them, 4 tickets and hospitality sees Taylor Swift at Wembley, costing over £1,000. And this is a weirdly recurring theme. They're all like, yeah, well, of course we accepted the free Taylor Swift concert tickets. It's like, why? You're on 100k a year, just buy it.
Yes.
Like, you can afford it.
Yes.
But the Health Secretary's biggest donation was valued at $48,000 in 4 instalments from OPD Group Limited, a company controlled by Peter Hearn, a recruitment mogul and one of Labour's biggest donors. Angela Rayner got $104,000 in gifts and donations. $2,500 or $2,200 for clothing from a luxury British fashion brand. And of course, Starmer got $16,000 in clothes for his wife in one donation and things like this.
Yes.
So the Labour Party are kind of swimming in money and hospitality at the moment, which is lovely for them.
Yeah.
While everyone else is struggling.
Again, I am quite impressed by the way they just don't care about any of the things that used to matter in politics.
Yeah, they don't. Propriety is what they don't care.
Yes, that's it.
So Bridget Phillipson, who's the Secretary of State for Education and Minister for Women and Equalities, was just like, yeah, no, I mean, it's perfectly normal. Like,
your declaration showed that you received £14,000 from the Labour donor Lord Ali last year. What for exactly?
Yep, so I received that money from Wahid Ali, who's a long-standing Labour peer. It was used to fund 2 events, all of which was declared properly and thoroughly. That's why that information is in the public domain. The first event was ahead of my birthday, so I was turning 40. I thought it was a good opportunity to get people together in a professional context. So it was journalists, trade unionists, education people, MPs and shadow cabinet.
So clients, right? I got the journalists, I got the trade unionists, and I got fellow MPs and cabinet members and all that. So it was a big love-in. We got 14 grand for a massive birthday party for me and the closest clients of the Labour Party. Remember when Keir Starmer was in 10 Downing Street? He was like, the country's been putting back in service of you. And who is it? It's a bunch of journalists and staffers and clients. It's like,
the more I realise, all politics really does just come down to the friend-enemy distinction.
For Labour.
Yeah, that was good because it was a collection of her friends. People protesting about children being murdered, they're bad
Enemies.
because they're enemies. And it is as simple as that.
Criminals, well, they're lifelong Labour voters now, as one of the criminals who was let out early said. But we'll carry on a little bit, just because watch her face.
The second event was an event that I held also again for lobby journalists, for people in the education
world. That looks
world,
like a forced smile.
as part of a reception.
No, she looks like she can't stop herself from smiling. She's desperately trying not to laugh in your face, right? But what was this one? This one was for more journalists and teachers. Oh, right, the other Labour client groups.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, okay, great, you were just holding parties. And obviously Trevor Phillips is just like, well, if this were the Conservatives, you'd be going mental. Yeah. And she's like, haha, maybe, but it's not. You know, that's basically the essence of what she's saying.
That's, you know, it was in a work context, you know.
That's a very nice thing, but if a Tory had done that 2 years ago, I know exactly what you'd be saying to me this morning. They should pay for their own birthday parties.
Look, this was in a work context. I didn't even invite my own...
You just said the same thing.
Yeah,
Come on.
I didn't even... My own family didn't come to that. It was in a work context. I celebrated my actual 40th birthday with my family. We went for a pizza. I celebrated with my kids.
You're so cheap. Oh, well, I know we had 14,000 for a massive work because that was paid for something else. But for myself, well, we're going to Pizza Hut.
Yeah.
You know, unbelievable. But anyway, so no contrition. No, like, oh, yeah, it does look bad.
I don't know if you're playing more, but if this is the interview I've seen, she justifies it later by saying, yeah, but I declared it all.
Yes.
Yeah.
They think, oh, well, I just told you that I've received all these gifts. But let's moving on. So, you know, she took Taylor Swift tickets. Okay, is that a work context?
Look, I'll be honest, it was a hard one to turn down. I appreciate there was big demand for the tickets. It was a privilege to be there. One of my children, you know, was keen to go along. It's hard to say no if you're offered tickets in those circumstances, but it was declared. I've been clear about that, but I do recognise that, you know, I'm in a fortunate position to be able to receive it.
I'm just higher in the hierarchy than you are. Don't you understand? No apology, no retraction. No, yeah, good point. It does look a bit bad if, you know, we're imposing what is essentially austerity 2.0 on the country and taking loads of freebies. But my daughter really wanted to see Taylor Swift. It's like, well, then you could have bought the tickets. Yes. You know, they are for sale. It's like, no, I just accept the freebies.
I kind of want to make an AI version of this. I just don't have the skills of interviewing Stalin. And it was like, well, yeah, I did genocide the kulaks, but I did declare it.
Yeah, exactly. It was actually, it didn't. They did everything they could to hide it.
Yeah.
But anyway, again, there's another Labour MP who's like, yeah, no, I took Taylor Swift tickets.
You accept those tickets now in the light of what has happened?
My declarations, you'll see, I don't think I've accepted very much at all. I did take my children to see Taylor Swift, which was more for them than it was for me.
But do you think that all of you now need to think twice about accepting things that perhaps other people would love to do but simply can't afford?
I think everybody has to make consideration about what they can and can't do with the time they have available with their family.
No contrition, no admittance of wrongdoing. It's like, no, we're just more important than you, right? We're not the party of equality. We're not the party of all of this nonsense plebeian, like, you know, fairness or rule of law or any of the other things that Labour parties in the past might have said. No, we get the free Taylor Swift tickets. We declare them so you know we get them, and screw you. It's
We're in charge, simple as.
Yeah, it's literally like that. And of course there are more free tickets. And again, they're just... I mean, literally, well, I'm not going to play it just because of time, but the summary of all of this is just, we're politicians. Of course we expect people to butter us up with handouts. Why do you think we got into this business in the first place? Yes. That's the through line, right? And then they got this particular one from the Labour Party conference, which is going on at the moment.
I haven't seen this one.
Oh, this is just incredible.
I'm really proud of people who want to contribute not just their time and volunteering, but their money to our politics. It is a noble pursuit, just like giving to charity, and we don't recognise that enough. The alternative is we ask taxpayers to fund our politics. I think they'd rather their taxes went into the NHS and our schools or stayed in their own pockets.
It's going to a Taylor Swift concert, a noble cause.
I'm sure Keir will shake it off. But let me say, Nick, I'm absolutely delighted in the BBC's newfound conviction that no one should be paid more than the Prime Minister, that they shouldn't give or receive hospitality, and will judge the performance on the social media.
Oh, that is so brazen. I'm really proud of people who give us money.
Well, you're just funding our politics. It's basically charity. Like, again, the total arrogance of the Labour Party at the moment.
But also really below the line. When he was saying, I'm really proud of people for giving us money, and that's money that's not had to come from the taxpayer, the implication clearly is if they weren't getting all of these freebies,
we would be rinsing you.
Yes, we'd be taking even more from the taxpayers.
Yeah.
This is the only reason we haven't trebled our salaries.
It's incredible, isn't it? And I love it. It's a noble pursuit to slush money into the Labour Party and give us free Taylor Swift tickets.
I mean, 30 years ago, for something like this, you would have resigned in shame. And then 15 years ago, you might not have resigned, but you would have at least had the shame. In fact, 2 years ago, you would have had the shame.
Yeah.
Now, there's no shame at all.
Think about when Boris Johnson accepted like 50 grand to get 10 Downing Street.
Oh, yeah, the wallpaper and stuff, yeah.
It's like, okay, that's really petty. I don't really care about it. But everyone was at least like, oh, that was bad. And they had the decency to look a bit hangdog about it.
Yeah.
Like, okay, fair enough. You got us on this one. But no, we're proud. This is a noble pursuit. Give us more free Taylor Swift tickets. Give us more free football tickets. Unreal. It's just unreal.
And it might just be the unfortunate point you've paused it there, but he looks like he's about to glass him for asking this question.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, you could see his response in the whole thing. He looks like he's combative.
Oh, yeah.
Like, no, I'm allowed to take these because I'm part of the government. And that's how this works. Now, I mean, when asked, of course, that only washes with a quarter of the public. 2/3 of the public are like, no, they shouldn't be taking free tickets and gifts. Why will you even ask me this? But so they've very much misread the mood of the public on this one, which I think goes to show that they are becoming far more isolated. And of course, this... I love this so much because this is the arrogance of them. And actually, this is one of the things I spoke about in my latest Islander article, which is exclusively in Islander, so you can't read this anywhere else. But I'll read you a very quick quote because I think this really summarizes it, right? The point of consensus around which the mainstream coalesces is growing smaller and more isolated by the day, until it resembles a modern-day ship of fools adrift on a turbulent ocean of grievance. Its occupants desperately cling to the mast and through rictus grins tell one another that the consensus holds and everything will be fine, despite the signs which indicate an imminent capsizing. In the end, all that's left them is to cry racism one last time as the stormy depths swallow them up. And
you wrote that?
I wrote that.
Quite good at this writing thing.
I appreciate that. The best article I've written so far. I spent a lot of time on that. Go and get it now because it's only going to be available for another week or so. And it won't be reprinted no matter how much you ask. Yep. So, don't miss out. But eventually, Keir Starmer was like, you know what? Despite the fact that only a quarter of the public are fine with this, again, the Labour hardliners are fine with this because, of course, it's our party. This is part of them. It's part of the hierarchy.
Yep.
Despite the fact that everyone else is like either I don't know or I disapprove, it took them about a week to be like, yeah, okay, all right, we won't accept any more. We promise, Gov. It's like, yeah.
They're not gonna reimburse the money that's already taken.
No, of course not. Well, they were donating to a noble pursuit, remember? So Keir Starmer, Angela Rayner, and Rachel Reeves, so they won't take any more donations for clothing after the row. People are struggling. Sorry, this is what Lisa Nandy said. People are really struggling in this country, and we don't want people to believe that we are living very different lives from them. We don't want people to believe it. It's not that it's not true. We just don't want you believing it.
Yes.
Very interesting. And so let's go on to how they're going to absolutely screw you, because your life is about to get markedly worse and theirs isn't. So you remember that Keir Starmer a month ago was like, look, things are going to get worse before they get better. It's like, oh, we know. We're well aware. We've got the Labour government in charge, of course.
I'm not sure that's accurate. I think things are going to get worse before they get worse.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's just a truism anyway. We just don't know when they might get better. maybe in 1,000 years after we've recovered from the damage Labour have done to the country, things will end up getting better. But obviously this is going to be the case. Sorry, I've got a bug going around that everyone's had, and it's very annoying. So, of course, Rachel Reeves has been going on about the £22 billion black hole in the public finances, which Labour are going to fill by fleecing you. Absolutely fleecing you. Because, of course, we're not going down the road of austerity, right? This is what LBC have informed us, which, of course, is true. The government will not be spending less. So, Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves explained this. Look, we're just going to do this. And, in fact, explicitly, we're going to increase government spending. So we've got a £22 billion hole in the finances, the public finances. So Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, is going to increase public spending. It's like, but how is that going to be paid for, Rachel?
And you know how they push out ideas to see what the pushback is going to be? One of the ideas that I've seen that Rachel Reeves is pushing out is changing the fiscal rules so that they can spend more, basically so they can ramp up more debt.
Yeah. Well, it's undoubtedly what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Because, as they say, no return to austerity. Now, austerity means a reduction in the amount of public spending on services.
Oh, no, actually, it doesn't.
Oh, go on.
Right, because the famous era of Tory austerity in 2009.
Oh, did it not reduce it?
No, and actually, I had this argument with the Tory minister that I knew, because I said to him, "You realise that there isn't actually any austerity. All that's happening is the planned increases are going to be slightly lower."
Okay,
but I said your spending is up, and he didn't believe me, and we actually had to go over to the Treasury and get a copy of the budget, and I showed him, look, your department spending is going up, and he didn't realise it.
Okay, austerity is supposed to mean. Thank you for the correction. The public spending on services and benefits was reduced.
Yeah,
that's not going to happen. And Rachel Reeves is not lying. She's not pulling the wool over your eyes here. No, we're not going to cut public services. We're going to increase government spending.
Yes,
get used to it, right? So again, the way she frames it, the public understands the need for sacrifices to stabilize the economy. So I know that you think we're going to have to make sacrifices. Again, Labour not making any sacrifices.
Well, the doctors just got 22%, didn't they, or something?
Yeah, the nurses have just rejected a 5% increase as well.
Yeah, but I mean, fair enough. I mean, if the doctors got 22%, why would you accept 5?
Well, you wouldn't, would you? You just keep using your bargaining position to...
I mean, surely there's something else that we can take away from the pensioners because they don't vote Labour.
So there is, in fact.
Right, okay.
We'll get to it in a minute. The concept of joy is what we're going to take away from the pensioners. She says, quote, "There won't be a return to austerity. There will be real terms increases to government spending in this parliament." They just say it. They just say it. It's like, no, we're gonna increase the amount of money the government spends, which of course means you're going to have to pay for it because the government doesn't have its own money. So it's just like, right. I mean, they just come out and say it. This in previous eras would be unthinkable. Right?
Yes.
In previous eras, you would never be like, so we're going to just increase the amount of money the government spends because that's good. Yeah. And it's like, no, that's evil, actually. I mean, literally.
Well, especially in this context, it's not even the amount of money that we're going to pay because it's all going to be done through debt. So it's going to be the amount of money that our kids and grandkids pay.
Yes, but it is also going to be a tax increase for you in the October budget. So,
well, and that, yes. Yeah. Well, so we all get screwed.
Yeah, every generation is going to get screwed. And you know what's interesting? I've recently been reading Thomas Paine, the most wrong man about democracy ever to have written. But like 70% of the things that he writes is whining about governments taxing people, which is totally fair. Right. But on that, I can't find any fault. It's like, we're getting screwed for taxes. It's like, that's true then in 1790.
Wasn't he a proto-liberal or something?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was a Republican revolutionary.
Okay.
But he was still... A lot of his argument hinged on the fact that the government at his time was taxing people way too much. It's like, you don't even know... I mean, I can't even imagine what he'd say about the government now.
Yeah, but the tax rate back then was like 5% or something.
Yeah.
Right, slippery slope.
There was a 2% stamp tax on a duty on imports from India and stuff like that. It's slippery slope. Like if they saw the taxes we have to pay now, they'd be like, my God, I won't even go any further on that. But anyway, so there's real term increases in government spending. Oh, God, thank God. So how are they going to make up this money? Well, they're not going to be deporting the illegals, which apparently are costing us $14 billion a year. They're not going to be ending any foreign aid, which this is costing us $4.3 billion a year in foreign aid, which is wonderful, according to the 22-23 budget, we're going to be sending $3 billion a year to Ukraine for as long as it takes. And we're not going to be cracking down on health tourism. It's $180 million a year. I mean, it's small fry.
No way it's that low.
Oh, it's way more. Yeah, it's going to be way more. But this is just the what is recorded.
Right.
So it's just what the government themselves recognise. The $180 million is actually a very low ball. I've seen other figures where it's $300 million a year. So
I used to live in central London near one of the hospitals, and I would regularly see Indian families turn up with their elderly relatives, with their suitcases still in hand, with the tags on them, and go straight into the hospital.
100%. It's going to be a lot higher than this, but this is just what the government recognises. They're not going to crack down on that. They're not going to crack down on foreigners living in social houses. And I think this is just, like, amazing, right? So on the right-hand side there, you've got social housing and privately rented. And as you can see, the dark blue is social housing. So 30% of sub-Saharan Africans are in social housing. 30% of the Africans in this country are being paid to live here by the taxpayer. Nearly 20% of Pakistanis. Like 17% of all foreign-borns. Why is any foreign-born? Why 14% of EU people allowed to live in social housing? Why is any foreign person in social housing? Why am I paying for them to live in our country? It's crazy. This is costing us billions, of course. Nothing will happen around that. Instead, what's coming is tax hikes, right? So obviously the budget will be out in October, but we know the sort of things they're going to talk about in it and they're going to do in it. So one of the things you'll notice there, they will not increase national insurance, income tax, or VAT. Right. Okay, but there are lots of other things they can do. First thing being inheritance tax. So inheritance tax at the moment is 40% on the value of an estate above £325,000 when someone dies. Now, £325,000 is not very much in the era of massively inflated house prices.
No, in fact, that's slightly below average house prices.
100%. If you bought a house in the last 20 years, you are absolutely going to be falling into this.
Yes.
Right. So when your parents die and they sell their house, 40% of that is going to the government.
Well, especially boomers, because they all live in mansions that they bought for £200 in 1961.
Yep. That the government is going to absolutely increase tax on that. They could also reduce the number of years allowed when giving away assets before someone dies, before the inheritance tax kicks in as well. I think it's at the moment 7 years.
Yeah.
So they could be like, it's 2 years now, whatever. So that's the thing. Capital gains tax is the next one. So this is the profit imposed on the sale of capital assets, including second homes, shares, business assets, and most personal possessions worth £6,000 or more, apart from cars.
And that's a really bad tax, because what it does is it makes sure that capital stays in really inefficient places, and so it removes the innovation that happens in an economy.
Yes, it makes your economy far less dynamic and static, because of course if I sell this thing, then I'm going to lose money on it because the government has got their hands in my pockets. It's like, brilliant. Excellent. What we need is a much more calcified economy where less money is flowing around.
Everything is static.
So there's less opportunities to earn money. Absolutely. Yeah. The next thing is council tax, and I really hate this because council tax is set in bands based on 1991 valuation of homes, and a chief economist for the Labour Party has been like, well, I mean, we could do sensible structural reform and, quote, raise extra money at the same time. It's like, great, more money coming out. And 80% of the council tax in Swindon, for example, is redistributive. So it's money the council takes from you to provide services to various people.
It will be bed and breakfasts for single mums.
Not just that. It's,
and immigrants.
Yeah, but it's poor Billy has a sight deficiency, so you've got to pay for his specs and stuff like that.
Right.
We're putting in a disabled ramp on a thing, blah, blah, blah. So, but that's 80% of your council tax.
Yes.
80% of it. The next thing they're going to do is business rates. Labour are understood to be consulting on charging business rates, which are on most non-domestic properties, with relief including for some small businesses, retail, hospitality and leisure. But that's great. Let's penalise business for making money. Is that a good or bad thing for an economy, Dan?
Well, funnily enough, near me there's actually an old 70s shopping block, and it is rammed. Every shop is full. It's really vibrant, and I can never figure out why until one day I discovered that because it's so dilapidated, they can't charge business rates.
Oh, really?
So no business rates, the most vibrant bit of my local area.
Yeah. Well, there's something about not having to give loads of your money to the government that makes a business work. Haven't figured out what that is yet.
Yes.
Stamp duty is the final thing. Stamp duty is the amount you pay on the cost of a property over £250,000 when you're buying and selling. And as Sky point out, it discourages people from moving home, and is part of the reason that older people are not moving out of expensive, larger properties. That's good. We just, again, make...
Well, and also they're going after the car. I don't know if you got this in there, but they're talking about 15p per mile road charge.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that, in fact, now. So another thing, they're like, okay, well, this is a bit of a problem, because as more drivers switch to electric vehicles, which currently do not pay car taxes, revenue made from the added tax on petrol and diesel will fall, which is a problem. And therefore, they're like, yeah, so we're just going to pay you for the mileage. We're going to rinse you for the mileage and pay you. So the average amount of mileage a person in the UK does is going to be £1,000 nearly.
So if this comes in, this will cost me £20 a day to come here.
15p per mile.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
£20 a day to go to work. So they're hitting on both sides. One, they're saying, okay, if you move house, we're going to dramatically increase your capital gains and we're going to increase your stamp duty. So you can't really move. No. Okay, so what happens if I get a job somewhere else? Can I drive there? No, you can't. We're gonna penalise that as well. So what do they want us to do? Just like work in the local shop or something? I mean,
well, they expect you to do exactly as you're doing now, but just to pay them more money.
Well, yes, I suppose
that's what they expect. But notice who's being targeted. It's just the hard-working, tax-paying, middle-income England that is just going to get squeezed. You know, they're not going to take benefits away from people who are too lazy to work, or, you know, people who've come abroad. Not going to take any of that away. They're not going to stop giving away foreign money. They're just going to make sure you have less of your money. That's the only... Squeeze that pie even more. And so it was rather ironic when Keir Starmer was like, yeah, we're going to bring joy back to people's lives. Now, at 2 o'clock today, he's giving this speech, which I guess we'll call the joy speech. I'm looking forward to watching it, because I really can't imagine what he's going to say that's going to make things any better.
We're going to lock up all the far right.
Well, yeah, but that's not good, is it?
That's probably the only thing that brings him any joy.
But what I love about this, Keir Starmer feels that it's his job to bring back joy to people's lives. Keir, just leave us alone. Yes. Just leave us the hell alone. My God, man. Right? And of course, part of the mission to bring back joy was stopping people from smoking outside of pubs, and of course shrinking pints. But I mean, so there was a study found by advisory academics to the Labour Party that if the beer consumption dropped by 10% when they you can't shrink a pint, of course, a pint is a unit of measurement, but if they sold them in smaller amounts. And speaking on BBC Two Politics Live, the former culture secretary said, offering people what looks like a pint, feels like a pint, but isn't a pint. So the entire conception of this is based on deception, right? Yes. It's about conning you into thinking you're getting a pint, but you're not getting a pint. But it means you end up drinking less and getting healthier, right? So this isn't about anything other than making sure we save the NHS money, because the NHS costs us a huge amount of money because of the black hole.
Well, it's not even that. It's just that let's say they take it down by a third. Well, that just means I'll just order 3 in the space of time that I would normally order 2.
This study has
and then I'll pay more duty.
You will, absolutely will. But this study has found you will drink 10% less, and that means 10% fewer liver cancers or something like that on the NHS. Because that's what this is all about. It's about saving the NHS money, right?
Yes.
And
well, the thing is, when you socialise medicine, you therefore have to start socialising the behaviour that leads to anything that might go into that socialised system. Yes, so they end up having to run your life.
Yes, you do. Which is why the pubs are going to be forced to close early, Labour think. Because hang on a second, if you can stay up till like 11 o'clock or something drinking, well, if you'd left at 9, that's 2 hours of liver failure that you're saving the NHS.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. What's going to happen is people go home and drink, and they drink more because it's significantly cheaper at home.
Quite possibly. But Health Minister Andrew Gwynn said the government is considering tightening up the hours of operation. If you're in somewhere like London, good luck finding a pub that's open past 9 o'clock. Just good luck finding it. Like, you can't go drinking. It's not a drinking city, right? But that just means that this is going to be everywhere else. So the London
and why do they think it is their I mean, I know why they're doing it, because of the socialised healthcare and the need to raise the revenue, all the kind of thing.
But you know,
this is not the government's job.
We'll get to that in a minute.
Oh, right. Okay.
It's actually, sorry, this is going on a bit, but there's so much here, right? So, realising that this was deeply unpopular, Cabinet Office Minister Pat McFadden was like, no, we're not going to make you 10 out of 7 o'clock in the evening or something. Don't be stupid. I don't think there's any plan to shut pubs early. The pub is a great part of British life, which is why 50 of them close every year.
Yeah.
The trend. And do you know what's interesting?
No, it's 50 a month.
Oh, sorry, yeah, no, good point. 50 a month. I apologise. That was correct. Yes, 50 a month, which is a huge number. Yeah. There are 39,000 in the UK, so we have got a lot.
I think that rate has slowed down. I remember the rate. The rate was massively higher during COVID.
Of course it was, because the government literally locked you in your houses and prevented you from going. But the point is, after COVID, it's still going down. So there's still a decline. And one thing I found that was interesting is that once the taxes and costs of the beer that you drink have been deducted, pubs make an average of 12p profit on each pint.
Wow.
That is staggeringly low, isn't it?
I mean, I did know that they make most of their money from food and the rest of it, but I didn't realise it was quite that.
It's because the taxes on beer is unbelievably high.
Wow.
At the moment. So yeah, it's staggering. Complete mismanagement, complete decline. But this, I think, was particularly revealing from Lisa Nandy, right? Where she explains Labour's vision for what government should be.
What does austerity mean to you? Because a lot of people will be looking at the spending plans, and in particular the cuts for unprotected apartments, saying, well, if it looks like austerity and smells like austerity, it is austerity, isn't it?
Well, in 2010, George Osborne and David Cameron put forward an argument that they believed that the state had grown out of proportion to Britain. They believed it was crowding out the market, and they wanted to see the state pull back. Rachel Reeves is making a very different argument today. She's saying to the country that we believe in active government walking alongside communities and businesses in every part of Britain to grow our economy.
What is austerity?
Well, austerity.
Well, there we go, right? Active government in every part of Britain, walking alongside as if there's no coercive nature to government or something.
It's very depressing living in a country which is ruled by people right in the middle of the IQ bell curve.
Also by women right in the middle of the IQ bell curve. Like, this is a very sort of, oppressively mothering.
Yeah.
It's very much, the entire country's being longhoused at this point.
Yes.
But it's like the oppressive mother has come in and they're like, no, we need to be there for everything you do. All the time. No exceptions, no area outside of our gaze. That's the philosophy that Rachel Reeves is putting forward, according to Lisa Nandy, but what would she know, And what I found really funny about this is, again, just a very last thing at the Labour conference. Again, look at who we're talking to, a school mom type, right? It's always the same kind of person.
It's like a Roald Dahl character.
It is indeed.
Sounded like you were suggesting that Labour could potentially be out of office within 5 years.
Well, I think they get one shot. People aren't going to wait for 10 years. If they can't get some movement in this Parliament, I think we might end up with people voting with their feet, and that would be a problem, because Labour has got good intent. There's no doubt about that. I'm meeting with Secretary of States, I'm meeting with Keir all the time, and they have got good intent. The problem is that these choices around the fiscal rules are totally and utterly wrong.
So she goes on, but as you can see, even the unions are like, they ain't getting a second term.
Yeah,
they've burned up any goodwill they might have had.
And that's quite easy to do because so few people voted Labour. I mean, they won because so few people turned out. So all you need is a relatively small proportion of the people who don't bother to vote last time to turn out, and it could swing wildly at the next election.
100%. And I think they're well aware of it. And I think they're well aware of how unpopular they are.
Yes.
And yet the devouring mothers of the Labour Party are like, no, we want to be, we've got good intent. And it's like, okay, but you're tyrannical and evil and you're making everyone poorer. You're immiserating the entire country. You're ruining everything. I don't care how good your intents are. Stop screwing us.
I hope you appreciated that segment from the podcast The Lotus Eaters. And if you want to see what else we're putting out, you can follow Connor's series, Tomlinson Talks, where he talks to lots of interesting guests, this time with Katie Faust. And if you want to see what else we're putting out, you can follow us on Twitter. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.